The Ashen Rose Chapter 2. The Forgotten Chapel. The morning broke sharp and cold, sunlight slicing through the fog like a blade of gold. Crows circled above Marnay Hall, their cries stark against the silence of the woods beyond. Rowan stood in the courtyard, sword in hand, moving through the motions of an old drill one taught in the blistering sands of Acre, refined with blood and desperation. The blade whistled through the air, each stroke a memory, each step a penance. Evelyne watched from the upper gallery, hidden behind the drapes. There was something in the way he moved, an economy of motion, a deep fatigue woven into his strength. Together, they crossed the courtyard and entered the chapel. This was not the brash young knight her father once described. They said they heard singing. The tapestries had faded, and candle stubs littered the altar. Yet beneath the rot and ruin, there was something still sacred. A narrow stair wound into darkness, slick with moss. A hidden compartment in the side of the sarcophagus opened, revealing a velvet-wrapped bundle. Evelyne reached for it, hands trembling. At the bottom, the corridor opened into a crypt. Ancient tombs lined the walls, their inscriptions barely visible beneath the dust of centuries. The script was written in a language Rowan could barely place, not Latin, not French. Something older, Druidic, Celtish. She called it the tongue of the first flame. And at the center, a sarcophagus unlike the others, carved not with crosses or lions, but with vines, stars, and a single rose in bloom. Evelyne led him past the altar, to a small hatch in the floor behind a crumbling column. This was a man forged anew, beaten and burned, and reforged in a crucible she could not begin to imagine. It granted clarity, even prophecy, but its presence brought war wherever it lay. The last to possess it were the guardians of Marnay, tasked with keeping it hidden until the rightful heir came to claim it. My father said our bloodline once held secrets, that before we were lords, we were guardians. When Rowan finally sheathed his sword and turned toward the hall, she made her way down to meet him. The air inside was thick with dust and incense, though no prayer had been uttered in months. This was sealed for decades, she whispered, until a storm last winter dislodged the stones. The workers were too frightened to look. Rowan knelt and pulled the hatch open. "I'll go first," he said, and drew his dagger. They descended together, the air growing colder with each step. Evelyne stepped forward. His face was hidden, but the seal he bore on his ring was unmistakable, the crowned lion of King John. Rowan ran his fingers along the edge of the lid. Guardians of what? Another passage, one not marked on any plan of the chapel, opened at the far wall. Then it is true, the air has stirred. A breeze stirred from its mouth, carrying with it the scent of pine and something else, burned parchment. Before she could answer, a click echoed through the crypt. Inside was a book, bound in leather dark as wine, its pages fragile with age. He turned to Evelyne, whose face had gone pale. "My nursemaid taught me some of this," she whispered, "in secret. They say the dead speak beneath the chapel," Rowan blinked. "That name is legend, so are dragons. Yet here we are." The book told of a relic, a stone known as the Ember Heart, said to have been gifted by the angels to an ancient queen. "And if the crown learns of this?" Rowan asked. "They would burn this place to the ground and hang us beside it." Rowan looked around the crypt, suddenly aware of the weight of centuries pressing in. The air grew colder still. And then he heard it. A soft hum, a woman's voice, ancient and wordless. He turned, blade in hand. "Do you hear that?" Evelyne nodded. It only began when the book was touched. A torch flared behind them. Rowan's eyes narrowed. "We're not alone down here." Far above, in the village of Caerleff a few leagues away, a man in a cloak of royal blue entered the apothecary. "I seek word of Marnay," he said to the old woman behind the counter. Her eyes clouded with fear. The man smiled faintly. And with that, he turned and vanished into the mist.